Alright everybody, welcome back! So, CAS has been a part of War Thunder since the very beginning of Ground RB. It's had its highs and lows and is very controversial. Some people think it's the greatest thing ever, some people think it shouldn't exist and we should have a, tank-only game mode. Now, I'm not here to talk about that today, but I am here to talk about an issue which is coming up, which I think is going to be very relevant very soon, and that is the fact that these, air-to-ground weapons keep getting longer and longer in range. We've already been seeing this to a degree. Recently, Gaijin went ahead and gave the Maverick lofting, which increases maximum effective range past, around 8 to 10 kilometers, which it was before. Now you'll have F-16 sitting at 14 to 16 kilometers and getting hits, assuming that people don't notice it in time and actually go evasive, right? We've also had newer, longer-range weapons like the long-range KH-29s coming in. Of course, we've had the PGMs that have come on the Tornado and the Mirage as well. And all these have one thing in common, is that they are still roughly within the range of the, SAMs in the game. Now, of course, the PGM was longer range, but it was incredibly slow. It would take forever to get there, and realistically, it wasn't an actual threat at longer ranges. Well, that's about to change. I don't know how many of y'all paid attention to it on the dev server, but Gaijin is actually going ahead and adding another SU-25. This time, it's the SU-25 SM-3. Notably, it's the first Russian jet to actually have thermals, and it does have some pretty nice thermals in the nose, but the big thing here is that it gets some new missiles as well. These, of course, are the KH-38s, and these things look very impressive. They have a decent-sized warhead, but the big thing for me, at least, is just how fast and how much range they have. These things have 40-kilometer launch range. Now, of course, that is over the ground, so you're not actually going to be getting hits at 40 kilometers in a real game. But the fact that they have that much kinetic range means that they are very effective at shorter ranges as well. And the big thing with them is just how fast they are. You see, if you launch a PGM at, let's say, 15 kilometers, it will take a very long time to get there. And in the meantime, of course, it's showing up on radar that entire time. And realistically, pretty much every time you use it, it is getting shot out of the air, unless people either don't have an AA or just aren't paying attention. These KH-38s are fast enough that I think you should actually be able to reliably use them. And another big thing is, especially because, the IR ones are the very effective ones against SAMs, these things have at least 20-kilometer lock range. I've seen some people getting 23-kilometer locks with them, which means that you'll be able to lock onto somebody, fire this, and dip out, let's just say before 15 kilometers. And that is outside the range of basically every SAM in the game. The ADAS, for example, only has 10-kilometer range, so if you do launch this thing at 20 kilometers, which is totally possible, you will literally be firing from twice the distance of the longest range SAM in the US tech tree. The only thing that even comes close to that kind of range is the Pantsir, which has 18 kilometers of guaranteed range, and even then, at those ranges, the missile only pulls like 5 Gs, and even for, an SC-25 loaded down, that is very easy to evade. And one small issue. The Pantsir is actually on the Russian team. While it may not be the most effective method, I could totally see people, starting at 20 kilometers, lob off all 4 of their missiles in quick succession, getting down to 15 kilometers or so, turning as they're finally being launched on, and then running back to base, kind of like the Phoenix spammers in AORB, and collecting a few free kills before doing it again. Or they could just sit there and individually lob each one in, turning around one by one, each of them at 20 kilometers, and actually have no chance of being hit because they stay outside the range of every SAM in game. And this is only going to get worse from here because there are no better SAM systems that Gaijin can add for many of these nations. I mean, the Pantsir was already an issue because most nations don't have like an intermediate range SAM platform like the Soviets did. And now they're adding all these missiles that have so much range that realistically you would need something like a Patriot to actually counter them. And the problem is that the Patriot and other systems like it just don't have a place in War Thunder. I mean, first of all, these are designed for much longer range engagements than what we are seeing in War Thunder. We would need something that has around 20 to 30 kilometer range to deal with these new threats, and there is nothing in that category. I mean, the lowest range Patriot missile has 80 kilometers of range, and that's just released range against air targets. To put things in perspective, most of the airfields are around 20 kilometers from the battlefield. These missiles have 4 times the range of the airfield to to the battlefield in Ground RB. There's also the problem that these aren't super mobile units that are designed to be used on the move, like something like a, Pantsir or a Tunguska or an ADAS or the like, right? These are designed to be set up in a stationary position. And sure, they are mobile, but their setup times are measured in the tens of minutes. For example, a Patriot is noted for having a fast setup time of less than an hour. But that's still much longer than what you need in War Thunder, especially because you're not just going to be sitting there in a single place. You have to cap points, you have to do other stuff like that. They just would not work in game. You also have the thing where they are more than one unit. It is not a single block. You have, the launch system and you have the radar system, and they're set up on trailers, which are then being towed. This just simply will not work in War Thunder. Now, of course, they can be used for AI targets if they ever wish to do so for Air RB, but for ground at least, these will not work as player-controlled vehicles or the like. I suppose they could go ahead and set up, AI batteries in the back of the map if they really wanted to, but that does not sound like a good solution to me, and it's not conducive to good gameplay. And honestly, I really don't know what Gaijin can do at this point. They've kind of backed themselves into a corner. They've been doing this ever since the addition of helicopters. Those of y'all who remember, before helicopters were added, there weren't any of these guided munitions and the like, right? And there were no SAMs in the game. It was just gun AA, and it was pretty balanced. Then they went ahead and added helicopters, and then they had to go ahead and add SAMs. And the SAMs for a long time absolutely clubbed CAS, right? Well, then Gaijin goes ahead and they decide to both buff CAS in several different ways, and then go ahead and also nerf SAMs at the same time. And now we're at a position where the SAMs are much weaker at top tier than the CASs. And then they were deciding to add even longer range weapons. I really don't understand what is going through Gaijin's mind right now. I know this won't really change anyone's mind, and I know they're just going to get added anyways, and nothing I can do about it. But I really think the best thing they could do is just to simply not add these new super long range weapons. There is just no feasible way to add them and to actually balance them, because there are no systems to counter them. And in a rock, paper, scissors game mode like this, there needs to be a counter. It's already basically impossible to kill an F-16C that's orbiting, 15, 16 kilometers away with AGM-65Ds, but those are at least much slower and you can shoot them down on the way in. You're almost certainly not going to see these new missiles coming. In any case, what are y'all's thoughts on this new addition? I mean, do y'all think that they need to go ahead and change stuff? Do you think this is a good idea to go ahead and be adding, more and more long-range weapons? Because I have a feeling this is not going to be the end. They're going to start adding stuff like the Slam, which has, 60, 70, 80 kilometer range. It's going to turn less and less from actual close air support and then more into just airstrikes, honestly, at that point. In any case, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and what are y'all's thoughts on this whole situation. And I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.